People of Australia are completely fed up with crime running rampant and criminals not being properly punished. And as me and my podcast partner Carly Soderstrom have been predicting for some time now, people are beginning to take matters into their own hands. This creates a pressure cooker situation, a very delicate moment in Australian legal history, which of course we can rely on the authorities to handle with anything but delicacy. My name is Topher Field. This is the Topher Project, and I help people like you to understand the world as it changes around us. And this crime situation here in Australia is one that is explosive right now. Quite literally, people are willing to kill over this, and that's the problem. The most recent example has been reported by 2GB. Ben Fordham specifically got the scoop on this story that a few days ago, two individuals stole a motorbike. The brother of the owner of that motorbike pursued them in a ute, ultimately ramming the motorbike, leaving the passenger on the motorbike in critical condition in hospital. The rider of the motorbike, I believe, got away. And the police, of course, are now considering whether they should charge the brother who drove the ute and pursued the criminals, ultimately ramming and hospitalising them, with criminal charges for his behaviour. Now, that's an ongoing investigation that no doubt is going to lead to a whole bunch of legal fallout, so I'm going to reserve my comments on what is likely to happen there. But this raises a really big question. At what point are we going to declare our justice system a complete failure and accept that if the system is going to fail and clearly be okay with its own failure because it's failing everywhere, it's been failing for a long time, they've had many opportunities to fix, for example, bail laws and to take more seriously these criminals that are becoming career criminals at very early ages now. They've had a lot of time to fix this problem, they haven't fixed this problem, and now tempers are boiling over. But there's a sad reality here, and that is that the system is going to protect itself against vigilantes with far more viciousness than it will deal with criminals. There's a very good reason for that. It's because criminals are actually essentially the customers as far as the justice system is concerned. As far as its existence as a system is concerned, they're the clients. Without them, the justice system doesn't exist. Without criminals, all the judges and all the court officers and all the police officers, they lose their jobs and they have to go and flip burgers or do something useful. Because we have criminals, they have jobs. And so, from the system's point of view, a criminal isn't a threat to the system. A criminal is, in fact, essential to the continued existence of the system to which they owe their paycheck. But here's the thing. People taking vigilante action, people taking justice into their own hands, people getting their own revenge and bypassing the police and the courts, well, they are a threat to the system. They are a threat to the justice system. There was a time where there weren't any courts, really. There was no sort of justice system. You go back far enough in human history, and we simply took revenge. We took our own action to get back the property that was ours and to satisfy ourselves that the criminals had been punished. A return to those days, I'm not advocating it, by the way, but I'm just saying a return to those days would mean that all the people who work in the system have to go and find their own jobs. That's why the system will deal far more harshly with anyone who defies the system than it will with anyone who actually just breaks the law, anyone who actually just goes and becomes a criminal. The person who chases and punishes a criminal will be dealt with more harshly than the criminal was in the first place. And this matters because these tempers are now flaring to the point that people clearly are taking matters into their own hands. From Victoria with its Rex Hunt style catch 'em, kiss 'em and let 'em go approach to young offenders, there are people in Victoria on 50 or more charges who are still getting out on bail, having already reoffended whilst on previous bail. If that's not a mockery of justice, then I don't know what is. And yet that's the justice system that is mocking itself. We have places like Alice Springs at the opposite end of the socio-economic spectrum, where we've got entire streets and entire areas where many people simply cannot go at night. And again, we have terrible crimes going unpunished, even though people are crying out for the police to get involved and for the justice system to do its job properly. Crime has become a massive issue everywhere in Australia, from the rich areas to the poor areas, the highly densely populated areas to rural areas. Nowhere seems to be immune. And the thing is, this isn't supposed to happen in a country like Australia. We're a wealthy country. We're supposed to have lower crime rates. We're a relatively tolerant country where there's lots of job opportunities and people can mostly live and let live and be left alone to enjoy their own culture and their own life and their own lifestyle. We're not supposed to have these kinds of problems. And of course, where things things do go wrong, when someone does become a criminal, we have a justice system that's supposed to deal with them. We were told, leave it to us. The government said, leave it to us. We've got this. We've got the police. We've got the courts. We've got the prison system. You don't need to own guns. You don't need to have castle doctrine. You don't need to have the right to defend yourself on the streets or in your own homes or to go and reclaim your own property. Leave that to us. We've got this. Well, the question then arises, what do you do when that turns out to be wrong? What does a society do when it realizes that the people who said, trust me, couldn't be trusted? That the justice system was more concerned with system than it was with justice. Now, that's a big topic for another time. System, I believe, is the most parasitic word in the English language. I'm going to write an entire book on this. I think this will probably be my third book, probably coming out next year. I haven't made up my mind yet. But in brief, the word system is a parasite. It takes the life out of anything that you attach it to. Take, for example, the education system. What do you think matters more for someone going through that system? That they get a good education or that they comply with the system? Who gets the better grades? Well, it's the one who knows how to play the system. What about the healthcare system? Do nurses and doctors prioritize patient outcomes irrespective of whether they have to bend a few rules and break a few procedures? Or do they follow the system so that their ass is covered even if patients suffer? Well, the system comes first, always and every single time. The justice system is no exception. It has been said that in Australia you can have all the justice that you can afford. I would argue that even that's actually not quite true, although not far from it. The reality is you can have all the justice that you can manipulate the system to give you. Someone with no money and no representation and no understanding of how the system works can walk into the courts with the best case on earth, the most ironclad, open and shut case of injustice that they are seeking the courts to make right, and they will never get justice because they don't know how to play the system. But a bank or a corporation or a politician or anyone can walk into the court system, and if they know the system, then they can get whatever injustice they want, and they can get it with a rubber stamp on it. Why? Because it's not about justice. It's about system. So what we have here is actually a test. This isn't so much a trial of whether this individual should have done what he did or not. The thing that's on trial now is our justice system. I will say this in relation to this particular event. There is a world of difference between protecting your family when you're inside your own home and faced with violent attackers versus chasing those people down the street in a ute and running them over. There is a world of difference between those two things, and this individual, I think, unfortunately, has probably served himself up on a platter to be targeted by the police and castigated by the courts. I think he's going to have a really bad time. And to be honest, people should be allowed to defend themselves, but it isn't as clear cut that you should be allowed to chase somebody down the street and run them over in your car, even if they are riding on a stolen motorbike. That's all going to get argued in a court of law, but the one thing we can be certain of it is that the system will continue to win. And it will continue to win until we, the people, stop tolerating the broken system, until we start demanding that the system fix itself, that the system prioritize the outcome, that being justice for the victims of crime, rather than prioritizing its existence as a system. How do we do that? What does that even look like? What do those words even mean? I mean, it's an easy thing to say. I suggest we start by stripping our laws back to no more than about 50 pages, no more than something that an adult should be able to read easily in an afternoon, remember and understand. Because any system that has such a large number of laws that it's impossible to know all of them, and yet the system says you have to obey all of them, well, that's an inherently unjust system. And you might say, well, Topher, stealing motorbikes is obviously against the law. Everyone knows that. Yes, I get that. These aren't laws that people are, I forgot I wasn't allowed to steal motorbikes. I'm not suggesting that's the case. But it's been observed for thousands of years that an excess of laws breeds contempt for the law. That where there are more laws, there is more injustice. Off the top of my head, I think that was Tacitus. I should have looked it up before I recorded, but I didn't. We've understood as a civilization for thousands of years that an abundance of laws does not lead to better outcomes. It does not lead to more justice. And in fact, the opposite is true. So we need to start there. Let's strip the legal system back so that it's simple, so that we have a few clear laws. And none of them, by the way, should be victimless crimes. The idea that jaywalking is a sin, the idea that not voting it should invoke the ire of the government, these things are nonsense. And if you have a law for everything, if you make everyone a criminal, then you make no one a criminal. There you go. There's another Incredibles reference for you. If you make everyone a criminal, you make no one a criminal. And if you grow up breaking dozens of little petty laws that shouldn't exist, do you really care about breaking the bigger ones? Isn't it all the same to you in the end? We are breeding contempt for the law by having too many. So, how do we fix the system? Well, I would start with revoking bail for anyone who's committed an offence whilst on bail. Let's start there. Certainly in Victoria, that's been the problem. But number two, let's strip our laws back to make it so simple that everyone can actually know and remember all of the laws. It can be done, it needs to be done, and a system that doesn't do that is inherently unjust. And then once we have that set of core laws that we actually care about, we need to enforce them resolutely, aggressively where necessary. We need to define what that boundary is and then protect and reinforce that definition so that people who overstep that boundary are held to account and the victims of crime no longer feel the need to take action themselves. Unfortunately, we see absolutely no evidence of any will on the part of our politicians, on the part of our bureaucrats, on the part of our police, or on the part of our justice system to make any of the reforms necessary to fix this problem, which means that at least for the time being, the pressure in this particular pressure cooker is going to keep climbing. And it pains me to say, I expect we're going to see more examples of this kind of messy, messed up vigilantism and people getting hurt in the future. I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't happen very often. My name's Topher Field, this is the Topher Project, and if this is the kind of content that you enjoy and get value from, then please like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and maybe share this with some friends as well. Follow me on all my social media at Topher Field, and you can get all of my merch and my books from goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.